So Maggie, thanks for taking time to do this interview with me. Just to go over a couple of things. It's the year 2040. So we're basically speaking in the present tense. All right. So I want you to try to imagine 2040. We're both 15 years older. And that's how we're going to be thinking as we go through the interview. And you are not a teenager, but you will ask the questions, and I, the elder, will respond. And there are four questions, so I'm going to ask you to start the interview and we'll see how it goes. All right?
Michael, come in. I can't talk right.
Okay, you all
Yeah,
ready, Maggie? Here we go.
I'm ready. Okay. Grandpa, describe how things are in 2040 now that humans have realized their projected future around climate change.
Well, Maggie, things are pretty good considering what they were. We're an electrified society. Our transportation is electrified. Our homes are highly efficient. The grid technology is smart, it's responsive, and we were able to do this. We've done this. We are this way because of good policies. And to be frank, it makes economic sense. And at the end of the day, that's what drove a lot of the change. We're doing okay. CO2 levels are um, not increasing any longer, and the warming will continue, but at a slower rate. So we're on the road to recovery. It will take a long time, but we've adapted and we've mitigated the worst. So I think we should all pat ourselves on the back for that and be hopeful for the future.
And looking back to the past, what did humanity do to get to this projected future?
Well, we use science to meet our needs. I mean, that's what technology is. And, the efficiencies of clean energy are such that it made economic sense to transition quickly to the renewables. And so our battery technology is reliable, it's economical. We have solar cells that are so much more efficient than in the past. We figured that out. I guess we also learned to work with one another, recognizing the seriousness of climate change and the implications for future generations with all the threats that go with it, and we know what they are. We had to work together, and we did so. And things like rare earth metals were shared and accessible. They weren't hoarded and made less accessible for the profit factor. Um, we also stopped warring with one another, and we started to war with the climate. And with that, we with urgency really shifted from the fossil fuel focus of the Trump administration. Oh my God, that was 4 tough years to a clean energy administration. And what else did we do? We put in the infrastructure that we needed to protect our coastlines. We did what we needed to have homes that were more sturdy and more able to withstand the winds and all the atmospheric events that were supercharged, that remain supercharged because of the warmer climate. But I think the biggest thing was we solved this together, and we recognized that this was the true war that was worth fighting for, climate change. So it wasn't easy, but we were able to get there because of those factors. Again, we always had the capacity. The technology has always been there. It's just making the right decisions, if you will. Yeah.
Hmm. And what were the obstacles and challenges that people had to overcome to
Oh,
realize their projected future?
one was greed. the root of all evil is the love of money. And if you look at the god-awful Trump administration, that was entirely focused on greed. And, so I think one big obstacle was just helping people understand that climate change is going to be more costly than anything else combined. And if we continue to, I'm going to say the US right now, if the US continued to disregard it, the leadership of the United States during that Trump administration period and the Republican Party, if they were to continue to disregard the urgency of the matter, we were in for trouble. So that was a big obstacle. Another big obstacle was shifting people's mindset about how to live on planet Earth. We got very accustomed to having whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. We got accustomed to luxury and big, and we were taught, certainly in developed nations and those that are driven by capitalism, that more is better, that we need more things, and so we've learned to live with less. We learned that there's an abundance already present without all the extras, all the gimmicks and whatnot. We learned to conserve. We learned to plant gardens, like the victory gardens of yesteryear. We learned to become a little more self-sufficient and communal. We learned to work together. Um, we learned that mass transit is really good and that it can be reliable when it is valued and supported financially. That was a big shift too, a big obstacle because everyone likes their own personal vehicle, and at least in the United States. So there were some big obstacles. It was one getting past the Trump administration, bringing in elected officials who understood the urgency of climate change, and also getting business on board. And the carbon tax was huge. Basically, imposing a tax that everything you purchased had a cost associated with the carbon that was released. And as a result, people started, it was like a nutrition label. So the burden of having people pay extra, kind of like the tariffs of Trump administration era, having people pay extra for products that were carbon intensive, that was a hurdle. But at the end, using ways to disseminate or to distribute those monies to the more needy, financially needy people, and then using the other portion of those monies to fuel energy projects and infrastructure projects really was a win-win. That was a big obstacle that took some real thinking to change people's mindsets about a tax on carbon. And then rewriting our curricula so that it was stewardship centered, so that kids, when they went to school, learned about stewardship, learned about the value of the lands, kind of like the indigenous peoples of yesteryear did, right? And they understood nature and their presence in nature. Well, we reinstilled that by rewriting what kids learned when they got to school. And that was a really good thing as well, but not without its challenges because rewriting 50 different states' curricula standards took a lot of focused effort. But yeah, those are some of the obstacles.
That's great.
Yeah,
If you could go back to 2025, what recommendations would you make to help people address climate change?
well, that's a good question. Um, I guess the biggest thing is to elect the right people and to start at the local level and to really bang the drums loudly for those people. I think also to have conversations about what's happening. You know, in 2025, 70% of people who believed in climate change and were concerned about it didn't talk about it. That's very concerning. And that I would say is another urgent matter. Talk about climate change. And don't necessarily talk just about the data, because there are a lot of people that deny it or are skeptical about it. Talk about common values that you might have. I'd say talk with people that are different from you, find a common value, and then try to pull climate change into that common value. Like, I like saving money on my electricity. You do too, right? I mean, our bills are high.
Mm-hmm.
With solar panels, I've saved a lot of money. So I think having more conversations about climate change, but doing so in a way that doesn't turn people off or have them dig deeper in their denial stance or skepticism stance would be a big factor. I guess the third thing is don't lose hope because we did get here. We did realize what we had hoped and dreamed for. And there's a bright future that lays ahead or lies ahead. I'm not sure which is right, for the planet because of not giving up. And I guess there's a lot of misinformation out there, and don't become too dependent on it. Don't look for it, but look at everything that you read and evaluate it for truth or fiction. And be careful with ChatGPT and AI in general because it it's great, but it's a tool and it shouldn't be your link to reality, I guess. So those are some of the things that I'd recommend to those folks living in the year 2025. Yeah, don't give up hope. Be careful with AI. Look at any information with a critical eye. And oh, what was the first one I said, Maggie?
The first one was, let's see, did not give up hope. Um,
Yeah. Well, the good news is it's on this recording, so
you
when I
talked
put it,
about, yeah, how like it benefits you financially as
oh yeah,
well
the
too.
economics of it, and
Yeah, but I
yeah,
don't remember
there's
what the first one
yeah, me
was.
neither. It's on the tape. So
Well,
anyhow,
that's great though. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we're done with our interview, right? So I'm gonna turn
Yeah,
the recording
just the
off.
four questions.
Yeah. So actually, for the benefit of the committee, what did you think going through that
I
experience?
thought that was really good when I was hearing it. I was wishing that this were definitely our future.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What did, go ahead.
I think that acknowledging that greed is at the heart of the problem and reminding, like, stressing that it's economically beneficial to deal with this now instead of having climate change be even worse in the future is important. Because when it comes down to it, all people really give a shit about is their immediate financial predicament.
Yeah.
Um, and it's true that like wars are a big problem. And part of why wars happen, I think, is because they're economically beneficial to those who are profiting from them. And because they like increase people's like national pride when they have an enemy and they're banding together to fight them. So I think it's good that you pointed that out. Like the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine, they're a big waste of energy
Yeah.
as well as being horrible. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I was really wishing that, I mean, I don't wish it were 2040 because I want to take the next 15 years of my life at a leisurely pace. But I was just thinking, God, like, I hope this is actually what happens because I am, feeling a bit doom and gloom often. And
Yeah. It's good
yeah,
to have that mindset. And that's what I like about this exercise is you start with a positive and you start
yeah,
with the actually imagine you're in this place and it's a good place to
hmm
be, which hopefully incentivizes people. And let's imagine that you were 14. What would it,
hmm
do you feel you would, what value do you think it would bring a 14-year-old, this
to hear
experience,
this.
interviewing,
Yeah.
imagining it's 15 years later and interviewing an elder. What would be the value for that individual to go through this experience as you just did?
Yeah, learning about how people joined together to solve a problem that seemed potentially insurmountable can help them realize that we can ward off future catastrophes.
Hmm.
And I would feel really grateful that people dealt with it then instead of letting it like kicking the can down the road so that it was even worse
Yeah.
now. it would also just feel really surreal to think about anytime you think about something that happened before you were born that was a major event. I don't know. It just feels sort of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
good. Those are good reflections. Thank you.
I bet they'd be really curious about why people didn't want to address climate change too. Like, why did we even have to fight for it? Wouldn't everyone be on board to try to address this problem? So that would be interesting. I think it's good that you mentioned that the climate is still warming up, but that it's, more manageable now because no matter what, we're going to have climate change. So some people are like, it's over, everything's going to be shit. And maybe it will, but it's also that every tenth of a degree we avoid the climate, like every tenth of a degree warming that we can prevent makes a huge impact. So we're going to have climate change, but we could have like bad climate change or we could have horrible climate change.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, I
I'm gonna
thought
stop
that
the
was
recording
good.
at
Like
this.
it's not like, wow, climate change is totally gone, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But
All
like,
right.
oh, we have a handle.
I'm gonna stop just so the size of the file
Yeah.
doesn't get